Picture it. The humid air of a Chinese summer night clings to your skin like a lover's desperate grasp. Thick and unrelenting, as the sun dips below the jagged silhouette of tiled roofs and ancient pagodas. Lanterns flicker to life along the winding streets forgotten, their red glow bleeding into the twilight like wounds in the sky. The 7th lunar month has arrived, the ghost month, and tonight, on the 15th day, the veil between worlds frays at the edges. Welcome to Mr.Sleepless channel, and I'm Owlman. Tonight we drift into the deep mist of an older world in the 7-part series, The Origin of Fear. Oh, and fair warning, listener. You probably won't survive this tale unscathed. These ghosts have a way of slipping into dreams, and who knows what they'll drag back with them when the dawn fails to come. So, before you dive into this story, take a second to hit that like and subscribe button, but only if this really ignites a fire in you for the legendary secrets I tell. And while you're at it, drop a comment below with your location and local time. Let's see where in the world you're tempting fate tonight, from the neon sprawl of modern Shanghai to the quiet suburbs of Seattle, all united in the chill of shared shadows. Now, dim the lights, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. We slip into the shadowy folds of Mulian Saves His Mother, a tale where a monk's unyielding compassion claws its way through the iron jaws of hell itself, all to drag one weary soul back from the brink. You're standing at the edge of a vast, fog-shrouded temple courtyard in ancient China, the air thick with the scent of smoldering incense and rain-dampened earth, where the distant toll of a bronze bell vibrates through your bones like a warning from the underworld. Flickering lantern light dances across stone carvings of demons with eyes like glowing coals, and somewhere in the haze, you swear you hear a faint, echoing wail, your mother's voice, twisted in agony, calling from a place no living heart should know. It's the kind of story that makes you pull the covers a little tighter, doesn't it? Because let's face it, in the quiet hours when sleep dodges you like a guilty conscience, who hasn't wondered if the ones we love are truly at peace? Or if they're out there bartering with ghosts for a second chance? Hell, you might just start eyeing your own family dinners with a suspicious squint, wondering what ancient grudge could summon the Reaper to your table. You are Mulian, aren't you? Or at least, that's the name they whisper now. The one that clings to you like temple smoke after a lifetime of wandering dusty roads and bowing to saffron-robed masters. Your feet ache from the pilgrimage, calluses thick as the scrolls you've unrolled under flickering oil lamps. But tonight, as the moon hangs low and bloated over the monastery walls, something stirs deeper than fatigue. You're no ordinary wanderer. You're a disciple of the Buddha himself, one of those rare souls who glimpsed enlightenment's edge and came back with eyes that see too much. The air hums with the low chant of your fellow monks, their voices weaving a tapestry of Sanskrit syllables that wrap around you like a shroud, soft, insistent, pulling you toward the meditation hall where the real unraveling begins. Settle in on that worn rush mat, the one that's molded to 1,000 crossed legs before yours. The wooden floor creaks under your weight, cool against your palms as you press them to the earth in prostration. Incense curls lazy spirals from a brass burner, its myrrh-heavy perfume filling your lungs, sweet and cloying, like a lover's promise laced with regret. You close your eyes, exhaling the day's clamor, the beggars at the gate, the merchants haggling over silk bolts that shimmered like dragon scales, and let the breath guide you inward. Deeper. The world fades, the rustle of bamboo leaves outside, the distant drip of water from the eaves. There's only the rhythm of your heart, steady as a drum in some forgotten ritual, and then a crack, a sliver of light piercing the void, not golden like the Buddha's aura, but crimson, veined with black, like blood seeping through cracked porcelain. You tumble through it, don't you? No warning, no gentle descent, just a lurch, as if the gods themselves yanked the rug from under your soul. Suddenly, you're not in the hall anymore. The air turns scalding, thick with the acrid tang of sulfur and charred flesh, the kind that clings to your tongue and makes you gag. Your robes, once loose and flowing, feel heavy, sodden, as if you've waded into a river of boiling tar. Shadows writhe around you, not the playful kind from lantern glow, but hulking forms with limbs like twisted roots, eyes glinting with a hunger that knows no mercy. This is no dream, Mulian. It's the vision the Buddha warned of, the one that comes unbidden to those who've peered too long into the wheel of samsara. And there, in the heart of it all, suspended in a cage of jagged iron thorns that pierce the gloom like a crown of forgotten sins, you see her, your mother. Oh, the sight of her hits you like a thunderclap in a silent storm. Her face, that familiar map of laugh lines and worry creases, now gaunt and etched with lines no mortal hand could draw. She's the woman who bundled you in quilts woven from her own late-night labors, who whispered lullabies laced with the scent of jasmine rice steaming over a hearth fire. But here, in this infernal gallery, she's a wraith, her once vibrant silks reduced to tatters that flutter like dying moths. Hunger gnaws at her, not the polite pang after a skipped meal, but a ravenous beast that twists her belly into knots, forcing her to claw at the air for scraps that never come. Demons circle her, gaunt, horned sentinels with skins like cracked leather, their laughter a rasp that echoes off walls that weep rivulets of molten lead. They prod her with spears tipped in frost, each jab blooming blue-black bruises that pulse with unearthly cold, while flames lick at her feet, charring the edges of her resolve, without granting the mercy of ash. You reach out, your hand trembling through the veil, fingers brushing the bars of her prison. They're real, scorching your skin with a heat that smells of regret. Yours, hers, the world's. Mother, you whisper, voice cracking like dry earth under summer sun, but she doesn't hear. Her eyes, those eyes that once sparkled with tales of river spirits and harvest moons, are vacant, locked on some horizon of torment only she can see. And then the vision sharpens, cruel in its clarity. You remember the offerings she skimped on at the temple, the coins tucked away for your schooling instead of the monks' bowls, the feasts where she favored the living over the ghosts of ancestors, letting pride swell like dough in the oven until it burned bridges to the divine. Not malice, no, just the small, stubborn sins of a life stitched from survival's threadbare cloth. But here, in Avicii's depths, the deepest hell, where the wheel turns slowest and the pain echoes longest, they compound into chains heavier than any forge could hammer. A demon turns, its maw splitting in a grin that reveals teeth like shattered obsidian. Foolish son, it hisses, breath foul as grave soil turned by rain. She feasts on her own greed now, eternal, unyielding. You recoil, heart slamming against your ribs like a caged bird. But the vision holds you fast, forcing you to witness the quirky underbelly of this nightmare. Amid the horrors, a fringe whisper from the lore that some say these cages are woven from the very threads of unmet vows. Invisible spider silk, spun by Yama's clerks in some bureaucratic underworld office. Imagine it, hell's own paperwork jam, where one overlooked prayer dooms you to this eternal filing cabinet. Historians still argue whether these visions were Mulian's literal descent or a meditative metaphor, a clever construct of the mind to mirror karma's unsparing math. But in this moment, doubt is a luxury you can't afford. It's real enough to taste the bile rising in your throat. Joke's on you, isn't it? Here you are, enlightened disciple, tripping over your own compassion like a monk in new sandals on a greased temple step. But the sarcasm fades as the weight settles. Your mother's cries, faint at first, swell into a symphony of sorrow that vibrates through your core. You see flashes, her as a girl, splashing in monsoon puddles, as a wife kneading dough with hands that never rested, as the mother who sacrificed her warmth for your path to the Sangha. And now, starved, scorched, her spirit fraying like an old scroll in monsoon winds. The mainstream lore pins this tale to the Tang dynasty around the 7th century, when Buddhism bloomed in China like lotuses in imperial ponds, blending with local ancestor worship to birth festivals like the Ghost Month, that midsummer observance where families still burn paper money to appease the wandering dead, a direct echo of Mulian's plea. You stagger back through the veil, gasping as the meditation hall rushes in, the cool floor, the steady chants like a lifeline tossed into choppy seas. Your brothers glance your way, their faces serene masks, but you're unraveling, sweat beading on your brow like dew on a funeral pyre. The vision lingers, a ghost in your periphery. Her hollow cheeks, the way her fingers clutched at nothing. Desperation coils in your gut, hot and insistent, birthing a quest that no sutra could script. You rise unsteadily, robes whispering against the mat, and slip from the hall into the moonlit cloister. The night air caresses your skin, a balm laced with irony, freedom for you, chains for her. What now, Mulian? Beg the stars for a map to the infernal bureaucracy? Or swallow your pride and seek the one teacher whose wisdom pierces even hell's smog? The path calls, gravel crunching underfoot as you pace the arcade, shadows pooling like spilled ink at your feet. Whispers of ancient lore slither through your mind. Tales from the Ulambana Sutra, that sacred text etched into your memory like a brand, promising redemption through filial piety's fierce flame. But it's not just scripture. It's the undercurrent, the sacred thrum that says even the damned can be hauled back if the living burn bright enough. You chuckle bitterly under your breath. Yeah, because nothing says family bonding like arm-wrestling demons over grandma's soul. Yet the quest ignites, a spark in the vast dark. You'll scour the Sangha, rattle the Buddha's ear with pleas wrapped in prostrations. Tomorrow, at dawn's first blush, you'll confront the Master, voice steady despite the tremor in your soul, for her, for the love that defies the grave's greedy grasp. As the chants swell behind you, A lone cricket chirps from the undergrowth, its song a fragile counterpoint to the hellish echoes in your head. You lean against a pillar carved with lotuses, symbols of purity rising from mud, and let the stone ground you. The air cools, carrying hints of jasmine from the garden, a fleeting mercy. But sleep? That's a thief tonight, stealing glances at your torment instead of granting rest. You trudge onward, the quest's first steps etching themselves into your fate, each footfall a vow. I'll pierce those gates, Mother, even if it means trading my serenity for your shadow's release. The monastery slumbers around you, oblivious, while your world tilts toward the abyss, hungry for the rituals yet to unfold. Dawn creeps in like a hesitant thief, painting the monastery eaves in hesitant golds that chase away the night's ink-black cling. You haven't slept, Mulian. How could you, with her cries still echoing in your skull like wind through a bamboo flute, sharp and unending? The air stirs now, carrying the first tentative bird song, a fragile trill that mocks the storm brewing in your chest. You push off from the pillar, its lotus carvings leaving faint indents on your palm like whispered promises, and make for the master's quarters. The gravel path bites at your sandals, each step a deliberate anchor against the pull of that crimson veil. Remember the demon's rasp, that foul, grave-breath taunt about her greed? It lingers, a burr in your mind, urging you forward as the Sangha stirs, robes rustling like autumn leaves, the soft clack of begging bowls being gathered for the alms round. The master's door is a simple slab of weathered teak, etched with sutras that seem to glow in the half-light. You knock, knuckles rapping like hesitant drumbeats, and his voice drifts out, gravelly with the wisdom of years stacked like temple stones. Enter, my son. The wheel turns for no vision. He's there, cross-legged on a low dais, his face a map of serenity etched by desert suns and mountain rains, eyes like polished obsidian, seeing straight to the marrow of your turmoil. You drop to your knees, forehead brushing the tatami, words tumbling out in a rush, the scalding air, the iron thorns, her hollow gaze pleading across the gulf. He listens, unmoving, the only sound the faint hiss of his breath, measured as a mantra. When you finish, silence stretches, thick as temple fog, until he nods, once, slow. The Ulambana calls, Mulian. Filial debt is the sharpest blade. Yours now pierces the realms. He rises then, fluid as smoke, and guides you to the ritual hall, where dawn's light filters through paper screens in shafts that dust motes dance like liberated spirits. The air here hums with sanctity, heavy with the ghosts of 1,000 offerings, sandalwood lingering from yesterday's burn, the faint metallic tang of brass bells polished by devoted hands. You follow, heart thudding a counterpoint to the awakening world outside, where farmers already yoke oxen to plows, their calls a distant murmur. This isn't just counsel, it's the spark to your quest's tinder. He speaks as you walk, voice a low rumble that vibrates through the floorboards. Gather the Sangha, he says, for the Ghost Festival's rites demand a chorus of compassion. Offerings of rice and fruit, robes woven from the finest silk, symbols to clothe the naked dead, to feed the starved echoes. And you, Mulian, at the center. Your vows, your chants, a bridge of merit flung across the void. By midday, the hall transforms, a whirlwind of saffron and purpose. Monks stream in, their footfalls a soft thunder, bowls clattering with harvested bounty. Mounds of glutinous rice steaming in bamboo steamers, its sticky sweetness curling into the air like a siren's call. Pyramids of persimmons, their orange skins taut and glossy, promising the succor your mother craves. Bolts of cloth unfurling like banners of truce, crimson and gold threads catching the light in sacred winks. You stand at the altar, hands trembling as you arrange it all, the master's gaze a steadying weight on your shoulder. "Breathe, son," he murmurs, close enough for you to catch the faint clove on his breath from morning tea. Hell's gates creak widest at mercy's knock. You nod, swallowing the lump that's half grief, half resolve, and light the first incense stick, its tip blooming cherry red, smoke uncoiling in lazy question marks that carry your pleas upward, or perhaps downward, to where the barriers thin. The chant begins as the sun climbs, 100 voices weaving the Ulambana Sutra into sound. Low at first, like river stones tumbling in spring thaw, building to a resonant wave that presses against your skin, warm and insistent. You join, throat raw from unshed tears, the words rolling off your tongue, ancient Pali laced with Chinese cadence, invoking the Buddha's grace to uplift the fallen. Sensory overload hits, the rice's steam beading on your brow like penitential sweat, the persimmon's faint citrus bite mingling with myrrh, the silk's whisper as it's folded into precise squares, each crease a folded regret. And through it all, flashes of her, your mother's hands, once deft at these very preparations, now clawing at phantom air. You offer the first bowl, tipping rice onto a silver tray that gleams like a moonlit pond, murmuring her name into the grains, for you, who gave all. A breeze stirs then, unbidden, riffling the altar cloths. Coincidence or the realms brushing close? Jokes on the underworld, isn't it? All that infernal pomp, and here you are, bribing demons with fruit salad and yardage. But the sarcasm grounds you, a wry anchor in the tide of devotion. As the quirky fringe of the lore bubbles up, some old scrolls whisper that these offerings aren't burned but lent to the ghosts, returnable only after a lunar cycle, like hell's version of a cosmic library fine. Historians still argue whether the Ulambana Sutra was penned in India or flowered fully in China's soil during the Tang era, a 7th century fusion that turned solitary meditations into communal feasts. But today, it doesn't matter. The rite pulses with borrowed power, your desperation the fuel. The Sangha circles tighter, bells tinkling like stars falling soft, and you feel it. A tug, subtle as a thread snagged on bone, pulling at the veil you tumbled through last night. As the sun arcs toward afternoon gold, the master steps forward, his staff tapping the floor in ritual cadence. Thud, pause, thud, like a heartbeat echoing across divides. He anoints the offerings with saffron water, droplets scattering like tears on the rice, and intones the invocation. By the merit of the assembly, let the hungry be filled, the chained unbound. You prostrate, forehead to the cool wood, and in that press, the vision cracks open again. Not the full crimson maw, but a sliver, letting her silhouette flicker. Less gaunt now, her fingers twitching toward the unseen bounty. Hope flares, sharp as struck flint, but it's fleeting. The demon's shadows loom, their rasps a counter-chant, mocking the fragility of your bridge. You rise, joining the procession to the courtyard pyre, where the true piercing begins. Torches ignite. flames leaping greedy for the paper effigies, houses for the homeless dead, gold ingots for Yama's toll, fringe firecrackers popping like celebratory ghosts, startling a laugh from your lips despite the ache. Yeah, nothing says eternal redemption like DIY hell currency, right? But the blaze warms your face, its crackle drowning the doubts, smoke veiling the sky in a hazy benediction. The offerings feed the fire one by one, silk robes curling into ash butterflies that spiral upward, carrying threads of your mother's tatters, rice scattering like manna, its grains popping in the heat with a scent that twists your gut. Nourishment denied, now given freely. You chant louder, voice blending with the roar. The Sangha's harmony, a shield against the pull of despair. Sweat traces paths down your spine, mixing reverence with the eerie thrill of meddling in the machinery of fate. And then, the shift. A hush falls, unnatural, the flames dipping low as if bowing. Through the smoke, you glimpse it, not her full form, but a softening of the gloom, the iron thorns glinting less cruelly, her cries muting to sighs. The master's hand clamps your shoulder firm as an oath. The gates yield, Mulian. Your compassion is the key, forged in loss, tempered in right. Night falls soft now, the pyre's embers glowing like fallen constellations, the air cooling to a velvet hush, laced with charred sweet. The Sangha disperses in reverent quiet, leaving you alone with the Master by the dying light. He speaks of the echoes, how this tale birthed the Ghost Festival, that mid-7th lunar month revel where lanterns bob like soul lures on rivers, families picnicking under the moon to honor the unrested, a mainstream thread woven into China's cultural quilt, enduring through dynasties like the resilient bamboo. But you're spent, knees buckling onto the warm earth, the weight of the day's fervor crashing down. Her release isn't total, not yet, but the chains rattle looser, a promise etched in ash. You lean back, staring at the star-pricked sky, the Master's words a lullaby against the encroaching sleep. Rest now, son. The wheel turns merciful tonight. Yet as your eyelids droop, heavy as temple bells, a final whisper tugs, the fringe echo that some say Mulian glimpsed not just his mother, but a mirror of all filial fractures, his quest a blueprint for the living to mend before the veil thins. The embers pop softly, a sacred punctuation, and you drift, the abyss receding like a tide on the turn. Her shadow lightens in your mind's eye, stepping free of thorns toward a hazy horizon of rebirth, perhaps as a village girl with rice-scented hands or a temple dove cooing at dawn. You've pierced the gates, Mulian, with offerings that outshone hell's horde, compassion's rituals etching mercy into the eternal scroll. The night cradles you, gentle as a mother's quilt long lost and found, and in that sleepy ASMR hush, the world rights itself, one redeemed soul at a time. You feel it first as a subtle itch under your skin, that prickle along your spine like the brush of unseen cobwebs in an attic you swore was empty. It's the first day of the 7th lunar month, and the air in your village hangs heavier than usual, saturated with the promise of rain that never quite falls. Instead, it lingers, misty and cloying, carrying whispers from the river reeds that bend like courtiers before an invisible wind. You're no stranger to the cycles here, knee-deep in the rice paddies by day, your hands caked with mud that smells of earth and forgotten promises. But tonight, As you trudge home along the rutted path, lantern swinging from your calloused palm, the world tilts just a fraction. The sun dips low, bleeding orange into the horizon like spilled syrup, and the cicada's chorus falters, giving way to a hush that's too profound, too pregnant with the unsaid. The gates are creaking open. You realize with a shiver that has nothing to do with the cooling breeze. The barriers between your tidy mortal coil and the realms below, where the hungry ghosts gnaw on their own regrets. Your home is a modest affair, thatched roof sagging like an old man's shoulders. The courtyard swept clean of yesterday's offerings, but already dusted with the first fallen petals from the ghost flower tree. Those white blooms that unfurl only now, their scent faint and floral, like a memory of milk soured by time. You set the lantern on the low table, its flame guttering in a draught that slinks through the bamboo slats, and busy yourself with the evening rites. A bowl of uncooked rice scattered at the threshold. Grains glinting like tiny stars, warding off the encroaching dark. But as you murmur the invocation, soft words in the old dialect, invoking the Buddha's boundless bowl to fill what karma has starved, your voice catches, echoing back at you from the empty air. They're coming. You sense them in the periphery, a chill that pools at your ankles like spilled well water, the sudden silence of the crickets as if they've caught a whiff of something foul on the wind. Step outside, why don't you? The village square beckons, a lantern-lit haze where neighbors gather like moths to the flame, their faces etched with that mix of reverence and reluctance you know too well. The air thrums now, laced with the sharp tang of burning joss sticks, those slender rods of sandalwood and resin that crackle softly, sending curls of smoke skyward like signals to the wandering dead. You weave through the crowd, your cotton tunic sticking to your back in the humidity, brushing shoulders with old Aunt May, her gnarled fingers clutching a string of paper money that rustles like dry leaves. The ghosts are early this year, she mutters, eyes darting to the tree line where shadows pool deeper than they should. You nod, forcing a half smile, but inside the sarcasm bubbles. Yeah, because nothing screams punctual like an undead horde crashing your summer block party. The square buzzes with preparation, vendors hawking ghost cakes, those sticky rice treats molded into whimsical shapes, their sweetness undercut by a whisper of salt, a nod to the tears the spirits shed in their endless hunger. And there it is. The first sign, a flicker at the edge of your vision, gone when you turn, a translucent form, stooped and elongated, its belly swollen like a beggar's sack, yet its throat a needle's pinhole, forcing every morsel to burn on the way down. The hungry ghosts, pretas in the sutra's stern taxonomy, born of greed or neglect in lives past, now parade from the thinning veil with a spectral rustle that raises the fine hairs on your arms. You smell them before you see them fully, a faint, acrid undernote beneath the feast's aromas, like vinegar left too long in the sun, mingled with the desperate earthiness of graves freshly turned. One drifts closer, its form shimmering like heat haze over paddy fields, emaciated limbs trailing wisps of ectoplasm, eyes sunken pits that gleam with an insatiable gleam. It hovers near a child's paper lantern, the red glow illuminating a face twisted in perpetual want, mouth agape in a silent wail that you feel more than hear, vibrating in your chest like a plucked guzheng string. The crowd parts instinctively, a ripple of murmurs spreading as more emerge. A procession that's equal parts pitiable and unnerving, their footfalls soundless on the packed dirt, leaving no print but a chill that lingers like morning dew. Remember Aunt May's paper money? She thrusts a sheaf into the communal brazier now, the flames devouring it with greedy snaps, ash fluttering up like dark confetti to buy safe passage, or at least a momentary truce. You join the circle forming around the central altar, a low platform laden with the preliminary gifts, bowls of clear broth steaming faintly, its surface unbroken to symbolize purity. Strings of garlic bulbs dangling like talismans, their pungent bite said to repel the more mischievous shades. The air thickens with chants, low and rhythmic, led by the village elder, his voice a gravelly anchor, invoking the Ulambana rites to ease their torment. But you're transfixed by the lead ghost, a matronly figure you swear resembles your long-gone uncle's wife, her distended form pawing at the air inches from the offerings, fingers passing through like smoke through a sieve. Joke's on the living, isn't it? We slave over hot stoves to whip up feasts that'd make a food blogger weep, only for the dead to show up fashionably famished, turning our potlucks into paranormal pity parties. Yet the eerie sacredness holds you, the way the lanterns bob in unison with an unfelt breeze, casting elongated shadows that mingle living and lost in a twilight tango. This isn't mere folklore. It's woven into the ghost month's fabric, that seventh lunar stretch observed across East Asia since Buddhism's tendrils gripped the Silk Road trade routes in the 7th century, blending Indian pretas with Chinese ancestor cults, to birth a festival where feeding the forgotten staves off misfortune. Historians still argue whether the hungry ghosts' pinhole throats were a clever monastic metaphor for attachment's chokehold or a literal curse scribbled in some apocryphal scroll. But tonight, as one ghost's wail keens faintly, audible only to the sensitive like you, the debate feels as distant as the stars peeking through the haze. A quirky fringe tidbit slinks into your thoughts amid the murmur. Old village tales claim these spirits can possess the overly stingy, forcing them to gorge until their own bellies bloat in sympathy. A karmic burp from the beyond that leaves you waddling for weeks. You chuckle inwardly, shaking it off as the elder douses the brazier with rice wine, the splash hissing like a serpent's sigh, steam rising to veil the square in a dreamlike fog. The ghosts press closer now, their parade swelling, a gaunt scholar scribbling phantom pleas on the air, a child spirit clutching at hems with tiny, insistent tugs that send shivers up your legs. You offer a persimmon from the altar, its skin cool and yielding under your fingers, placing it just beyond the veil's edge. The nearest ghost lunges, form distorting in a ripple of frustration as it dissolves the fruit into nothingness, a brief glow of satiation flickering in its eyes before the hunger rebounds, fiercer. The night deepens, the moon a sliver of bone rising slow, and the square pulses with this uneasy communion. The living's voices a bulwark against the spectral tide. Laughter forced but fervent as tales spin to lighten the load. You lean against a post, the wood rough and grounding under your palm, inhaling the medley. Charred paper, sweet rice, the ghost's faint mustiness like attics full of unspoken griefs. One brushes past you, close enough for its chill to seep through your tunic, carrying a whisper of jasmine, your grandmother's scent, or just the flower's trick in the wind. The veil thins further, gates yawning with a creak you imagine rather than hear, unleashing more into the fray. A merchant ghost haggling shadows for scraps, its voice a dry rattle that blends with the vendor's calls. Desperation coils in the air, sacred and sleepy, lulling you toward the banquet's heart, where the true indulgence awaits. Tables groaning under illusions of plenty, a fragile feast to sate the insatiable before the month seals them away again. As the chants swell, wrapping you in their ASMR hush, you step back, the procession eddying around the altar like leaves in a stream. The ghost's eyes, those bottomless craters, lock on yours for a beat, pleading, accusing, and in that gaze, you glimpse the wheel's cruel spin. Lives unlived, hungers unquenched. The elder signals the shift, a bell tolling soft and resonant, drawing the crowd inward, toward the homes where private altars flicker to life. You follow the flow, lantern in hand, the path home now flanked by these ethereal tag-alongs, their cravings a palpable hum against your skin. The gates stand ajar, Mulian's legacy echoing in every offering. But tonight, it's your vigil. The dawn of the banquet calling you deeper into the night's embrace, where feasting with phantoms tests the bonds of blood and beyond. The lantern's glow pulls you onward, a string of fireflies tethered to the village's crooked lanes, where the air now pulses with the low hum of anticipation, like the breath before a storm breaks, heavy and electric. You slip through your courtyard gate, the hinges sighing in that familiar creak that's become the night's underscore, and there they are. The ghosts trailing you like unwanted shadows at a wake, their forms flickering at the edges of the lantern light, drawn by the scent wafting from your open door. Rice steam curls out, mingling with the faint vinegar tang you caught earlier in the square. Remember that lead ghost, the one with the jasmine whisper? It's here now, hovering just beyond the threshold, its elongated fingers twitching toward the steam like a moth to forbidden flame. You pause, heart stuttering a beat in the humid hush, and murmur the ward. A pinch of salt flicked across the lintel, grains scattering like hesitant stars, buying you moments in this delicate dance. The banquet awaits inside, tables low and laden, a spread conjured from the harvest's grudging bounty to tempt these spectral crashers with illusions of fullness, all while the chants from the square fade into a distant lullaby, weaving sacred threads through the encroaching dark. You duck under the lintel, the thatch brushing your hair like cool fingers, and the room envelops you, warm now, alive with the sizzle of clay pots bubbling over a low charcoal brazier, flames licking blue at the edges where sesame oil pools. The table groans under its ritual load, pyramids of mooncakes, their lotus paste hearts glistening like buried secrets. Platters of fried youtiao, golden twists that crunch faintly as you arrange them, releasing a whisper of anise that battles the ghost's musty undercurrent. And the water offerings, bowls of clear spring brew infused with mung beans, their subtle earthiness meant to quench throats narrower than a whisper. You light the altar candles, twin flames sputtering to life on beeswax stubs that drip slow tears of gold, casting the walls in a dance of light and shadow where the ghosts' silhouettes stretch and warp, pressing close but never quite crossing into the hearth's glow. Aunt May would approve. You spot her bundle of paper money peeking from your sleeve, saved for the pyre later, a currency for the coinless dead that feels as flimsy as hope in your palm. Settle cross-legged on the rush mat, the fibers prickling your calves like a gentle reprimand, and begin the serving. Slow, deliberate, each gesture a invocation wrapped in domestic rhythm. You spoon rice into a shallow dish, its grains still warm and pearl white, flecked with slivers of dried shrimp that catch the candlelight like tiny shells from a forgotten shore. For the kin who wander, you intone, voice soft as the steam rising, and slide it toward the veil's edge, that invisible membrane where living warmth meets the chill void. The jasmine ghost lunges first, form rippling like water struck by a stone, its pinhole throat distending in a futile gulp that sends a shiver across the tablecloth, rattling the chopsticks like bones in a diviner's cup. It fades back, momentarily sated in that illusory way the rites promise, eyes glowing faint with borrowed relief before the hunger coils anew, a serpent in the belly of eternity. You watch, breath held in that ASMR pause, the room's quiet broken only by the brazier's pop and the distant dog's bark, echoing the square's unease, where more families mirror your vigil, turning homes into hasty temples. The tension builds like dough rising in the heat, sacred and sly, as more shades slip in. The scholar ghost from earlier, now scribbling air with inky fingers that leave no mark but a faint ozone whiff, drawn to the ink-black fermented tofu you've cubed neat on a leaf platter. You offer it next, the cube's umami tang blooming sharp in the air, a tease for tongues long parched. It devours the illusion, form shuddering in ectoplasmic ecstasy, but the piece is fragile. Whispers slither from its throat. Dry as autumn leaves, regrets of hoarded scrolls, unlent wisdom, the karmic debts that bloated its frame into this eternal want. You lean in, close enough to feel its chill lap at your knuckles like a tide's edge, and counter with the chant. Low, rhythmic, your voice blending with the night's chorus outside, invoking the boundless bowl to multiply this meager spread into mountains for the multitude. Gentle sarcasm tugs at your lips. Yeah, because nothing says ghostly group therapy like playing caterer to an army of afterlife anorexics, complete with invisible place settings. Joke's on the veil tonight, isn't it? We lay out the good china for apparitions who'd sell their ectoplasm for a decent dim sum deal, hoping a sugar rush buys us a month of good luck. But the indulgence bitters quick. The water bowl trembles as a child ghost, all wispy braids and pleading eyes, dips phantom hands in, splashing ripples that chill the mat beneath you, soaking through to bone. You add osmanthus syrup, its floral sweetness a golden drizzle that scents the air like a temple garden in bloom, and watch her form plump fleetingly, giggles bubbling silent from her throat before the unrest whispers back. A mother's neglect, a toy withheld in tantrum's heat, now echoed in her endless reach. The rituals anchor you, sprinkling sesame seeds in a protective circle, their nutty crunch underfoot a talisman against the bolder shades who paw at the mooncakes, crumbling crusts into dust that swirls like spectral confetti. Outside, the village hums with parallel feasts, laughter forced through the fear, tales traded like currency to humanize the horror, binding the living in shared vigil against the unrest's tide. As the moon climbs, silvering the window slats, you pivot to the heart of it, the illusory bounty, those paper confections folded into effigies of plenty. Faux roast ducks glistening with edible gold leaf that flakes like dragon scales, paper money bundled into fat wallets for Yama's greedy clerks. You feed them to the brazier one by one, flames roaring up in hungry approval, the smoke thick and acrid, carrying your merits downward like a courier in the gloom. The ghosts cluster closer, their chorus of sighs a counterpoint to the crackle, eerie harmonies that vibrate in your chest, sacred in their sorrow. Remember the persimmon from the square? You slice one now, its flesh yielding orange under your knife, juices beading sticky on the board, and place wedges at the circle's edge. A merchant ghost claims one, bartering phantom coins in midair, his bloated belly deflating just a touch as the illusion takes hold. But the whispers persist, threading through the feast like veins in marble. Eternal unrest, the wheel's unyielding spin, where 1 month's mercy barely dints the debt. This banquet's roots run deep, a mainstream thread from the Tang dynasty's 8th century scrolls, when imperial edicts formalized the Ghost Festival as a national nod to the Ulambana, turning solitary alms into empire-wide indulgence to appease the realm's restless ranks. Historians still argue whether these illusory feasts were Buddhist innovation to symbolize non-attachment or a sly graft onto indigenous ancestor rites, a cultural mashup that let the dead dine without devouring the larder. And the quirky fringe? Village elders swear that if a ghost lingers past the incense burn, say, drawn by a grudge over an unpaid dowry, it hitches a ride in your shadow, turning your footsteps echoey till the month's end. A spectral hitchhiker with a grudge and 0 bus fare. You snort softly at the thought, shaking off the chill as you rise to stir the congee pot, its rice porridge bubbling creamy, laced with ginger's sharp bite that cuts the night's cloying weight. The hours blur in this tense tango, your arms aching from the endless serving, doling out illusions of braised pork belly, its paper facsimile curling black in the fire with a scent of imagined caramelization. Chanting over strings of dried dates, their chewy sweetness a lure for the sweet-toothed shades. One ghost, a grizzled farmer, scythe-scarred hands reaching, pauses mid-grasp. Form solidifying to whisper gratitude, his unrest ebbing like mist at dawn before the hunger pulls him back into the fray. Peace forges in fragments, a shared silence as the candles gutter low, wax pooling like solidified prayers. The way your own hunger fades, sated by the rite's rhythm, the sacred hush wrapping you like a quilt stitched from ancestors' sighs. Outside, the square's bells toll the midnight mark, a resonant call that herds the bolder ghosts toward retreat. But yours linger, eyes gleaming with that bottomless plea, testing the bonds. Blood's pull, the living's guilt-laced grace. Dawn's first blush teases the horizon, graying the smoke veils, and you douse the brazier with the final libation. Rice wine hissing into steam that rises like a farewell. The ghosts recede, forms dissolving into the morning's reluctant light. Their whispers fading to the river's murmur, leaving the table picked clean of illusions. The air lighter but laced with the echo of unrest. You slump against the wall, The mats weave, imprinting your skin like a map of the night's negotiations. Exhaustion, a warm fog that blurs the edges. The banquet's over, fragile truce sealed in ash and chant, but the month stretches ahead. 30 days of vigilance, where every shadow might harbor a hitchhiker, every meal a potential parley. You've tempted the undead with bounty borrowed from the void, forging peace from pity's forge. And in that sleepy afterglow, the world settles, eerie embers cooling to the sacred spark of survival. The veil mends, gates groaning shut on their parade. But you carry their hunger now, a whisper in your step. Until the wheel turns full and the living feast alone once more. You are Lan, aren't you? Or at least, that's the name etched into the village ledgers, the one that rolls off tongues like a half-remembered melody from childhood reed flutes. Your days blur in the silk workshops, fingers nimble as spider legs weaving threads that shimmer like captured moonlight. Emerald greens for the emperor's robes, crimsons for the bridal veils that veil more than faces. But tonight, under the ghost month's hazy canopy, the looms fall silent, and the village pulses with the mid-autumn revels, lanterns swelling the sky like 1,000 suspended hearts. You trudge the winding path from the dye vats, your wooden clogs clopping soft on the packed earth, the air laced with osmanthus blooms that cling to your tunic like insistent suitors. The scent grounds you, sweet and heady, a counterpoint to the faint rot from the river, whispers of the hungry ghosts parading just beyond the veil, but you push it aside. Tonight's for the living, for her. The square unfurls before you, a riot of silk banners snapping in the breeze, their edges frayed like the hems of hurried dreams. Stalls hawk mooncakes stamped with jade rabbits, their lotus paste oozing sticky under knives that slice with ceremonial flair, and children dart like minnows, faces smeared with mung bean joy. But your eyes seek only one light, the red lantern dangling from the old willow at the betrothal pavilion, its glow a beacon pulsing warm against the twilight's indigo bruise. She's there, May, your May, poised on the lacquered bench, her qipao hugging curves like a lover's secret. Embroidered peonies blooming fierce across the silk and threads you wove yourself. Her hair piles high, pinned with a jade phoenix that catches the lantern's fire, turning her dark tresses to a cascade of embers. You approach, heart thudding a rhythm that drowns the pipa's twang. The crowd's murmur fading to a sacred hush as the matchmaker, that bustling auntie with cheeks like steamed buns, ushers you forward. Kneel with her on the rush mats, the fibers whispering against your knees like conspirators, and the rite begins in that sleepy ASMR cadence, incense uncoiling from a brass tripod, its sandalwood veil drawing lazy figure eights in the air, thick enough to taste on your tongue, bitter, promising. The matchmaker intones the vows, her voice a gravelly lilt that wraps around you both. Under heaven's eye and earth's embrace, you pledge threads unbroken, lanterns eternal. You exchange the betrothal gifts, your carved jade bracelet slipping cool onto her wrist, her embroidered pouch heavy with dried persimmons, and a lock of your hair, tied with crimson cord that matches the lantern's glow. Her fingers brush yours, electric as summer lightning over the patties, and in that touch, the world narrows. Her almond eyes locking yours, pupils wide as moonlit wells, lips curving in a smile that's half shy, half siren. "Lon," she breathes, voice silkier than the scarves at your stall. "This light will guide us always." You nod, throat tight with the weight of it, love raw and untested, blooming fierce in this lantern-lit cocoon. The village elder seals it then, a scroll unrolled with flourishes of ink that smell of fresh ground sumac, the characters for eternal union bold as blood oaths. You rise together, the crowd erupting in claps that scatter like startled birds, firecrackers popping overhead in bursts of sulfur-scented stars. May laughs, the sound bubbling clear as the village spring, and pulls you into the dance, feet shuffling in the dust to the erhu's wail, her hand warm in yours, the red lantern swaying above like a jealous chaperone. Sensory whirl hits, the crush of bodies slick with festival sweat, the tang of grilled chestnuts from a vendor's cart wafting sharp. The way her perfume, jasmine laced with rice powder, mingles with the night's mist, turning every inhale into a vow renewed. You spin her under the willow's drape, branches sighing soft as old lovers, and for a breath-stealing moment, it's just you two. Promises sealed in glances. The future a tapestry you're both threading, crimson bright. But the sarcasm of fate. Here you are, toasting with baijiu that burns like liquid fire down your gullet, cups clinking in toasts to 100 suns and boundless joy, when the gods must be chuckling over their celestial dice. Jokes on the happy couple, right? Planning forever while the veil thins, ghosts rubbing their pinhole throats in envy of your feast. The night wears on, lanterns multiplying until the sky's a quilt of glow, and you steal away with May to the riverbank, the water's lap a lullaby against the revel's roar. You sit on the mossy stones, her head on your shoulder, the red lantern, now yours, a betrothal heirloom, dangling from a branch, its light pooling ruby on the ripples. "Promise me," she murmurs, tracing your palm with a fingertip that raises gooseflesh, "that if the winds turn cruel, this light finds me still." You swear it, solemn as a sutra, lips brushing her temple where her pulse flutters like a caged moth. The air cools, carrying the river's fishy breath and a distant thunder rumble. Harbinger, perhaps, but you dismiss it, lost in her warmth. Dawn creeps thief-like, gilding the willows in reluctant gold, and the village stirs with the afterglow. Hung over hawkers folding stalls, children yawning amid confetti drifts. You walk May home, arm laced through hers, the lantern swinging gentle between you like a shared heartbeat. Her gate creaks open, the courtyard blooming with morning glories that unfurl lazy petals, and she pauses, turning with that smile that unravels you. "Tonight, husband-to-be," she teases, voice husky from the night's songs. "We dream the wedding feast." You linger, stealing one last kiss, soft, tasting of mooncake sweetness and unspoken tomorrows, before the matchmaker's cough herds you away. The path back feels lighter, clogs barely touching earth. The lantern's glow a talisman against the creeping fatigue. But as you crest the hill, a shout pierces the mist, frantic, edged with grief. Your stomach knots, a premonition slithering cold, rushing toward the sound, feet pounding gravel that bites like regret. The workshop looms, smoke still curling from the dye vats, but the air reeks now, not of indigo and mordant, but of charred silk and something sharper, like fear distilled. Workers cluster at the door, faces ashen as rice paper, and you push through. the lantern clutched tight, its light cutting the gloom like a blade. There, in the heart of the loom room, May, crumpled amid tangled threads, her qipao singed black at the hems, a fallen oil lamp shattered beside her like a broken vow. The fire, sparked by a careless wick in the night's hush, had licked swift and silent, claiming her before the alarm roused the sleepers. Her face, serene even in repose, eyes closed as if in dreamless slumber. But the charring, it creeps at the edges, a cruel mockery of the bridal reds you'd planned. You drop to your knees, the lantern tumbling from numb fingers to roll against her side, its glow bathing her in crimson mercy. May, you choke, voice cracking like dry bamboo, hands hovering, afraid to touch the fragile shell. The village descends in a whirl of wails and water buckets, but it's too late. The tragedy etches itself in screams that echo the ghost's parade, untimely as a vow interrupted. You cradle the lantern close, its warmth a ghost of her hand in yours, while the elder mutters prayers to appease the ancestors, blaming a restless shade for the flame's caprice. Mainstream lore ties such hauntings to the Qing dynasty's 19th century ghost marriages, where bereaved families wed the dead to wandering spirits, ensuring no soul lingered unloved, a custom that bridged the living's grief with the beyond's bargain. Historians still argue whether these rites stemmed from Confucian filial duty or a deeper Taoist flux of yin-yang balances, but in your shattering moment, theories a cold comfort, and the quirky fringe. Some say the unbetrothed dead carry their lanterns as soul lures, crimson bait for lovers left behind, drawing them into fogs where promises twist into traps. Joke's on love, isn't it? Seals a pact under pretty lights. Then fate flicks the switch. Poof, eternal flame meets eternal nap. Yet the sacred stirs amid the smoke. You rock with the lantern, May's pouch clutched in your fist, the persimmons crushed to pulp that stains your palm like dried blood. Her spirit, you sense it, a flicker at the veil's edge, restless, bound by the unbroken thread of your oath. The crowd thins as dawn hardens, leaving you alone with the hush, the air heavy with wet ash and jasmine's fading lie. You rise, unsteadier than a reed in monsoon gale, the lantern's glow unwavering, a beacon birthed in bliss now shadowed by loss. The vow holds, crimson and cruel, pulling you toward paths fog-shrouded, where her light might yet pierce the grave's divide. The village slumbers uneasy, but you? Vigil-bound, the quest ignites. Follow the glow, Lan, through the mists that swallow the living, to where promises glow ghostly and true. The workshop's hush presses in like a mourner's veil, the air still acrid with the bite of quenched flames and the faint, cloying undercurrent of charred peony silk, echoes of May's qipao, now a brittle shroud folded away by trembling hands. You clutch the red lantern tighter, its bamboo frame warm against your palm as if it hoards the last embers of her touch. The glow pulsing steady, defiant against the graying dawn that slinks through the slatted windows. The village elder's prayers trail off into mutters, his incense stick guttering out in a curl of gray that dissipates like half-formed regrets, leaving you alone with the weight of the pouch in your other hand. Persimmons pulped to a sticky paste that seeps through the threads, staining your skin with the juice of promises gone sour. Lan, a neighbor whispers, laying a hand on your shoulder, but you shrug it off, rising on legs that feel like they've waded through river mud, the clogs abandoned somewhere in the chaos. The lantern leads now, its light a crimson thread pulling you from the ruin, out into the courtyard, where morning glories wilt under the first reluctant sun, petals curling inward like secrets too heavy to hold. You wander the paths that once danced with her laughter, the village stirring slow around you, cocks crowing hoarse from the coops, the distant clank of water buckets hauled from the well, but it all blurs into a sacred fog. The world's edges softened by the grief that coils in your chest like incense smoke refusing to rise. The red lantern swings gentle from your fist, casting elongated shadows that slither ahead, beckoning toward the riverbank where you last kissed under the willow's sigh. The air there cools your brow, laced with the fresh slap of water on stones and the faint fish-scale tang that clings to everything riverine. But as twilight bleeds back in, ghost month's endless dusks stretching time like pulled silk, the glow sharpens, unnatural, pulling your gaze to the tree line where fog rolls in like uninvited kin. You follow, don't you? Feet crunching gravel that bites familiar, the lantern's warmth a counter to the chill that seeps from the mist, carrying whispers, her voice faint as reed flutes in the wind. Find me, Lan. This light will guide. The path's fog-shrouded now, twisting through bamboo groves where stalks clatter soft like bamboo wind chimes in a breeze you don't feel. Their leaves brushing your arms with a touch that's half caress, half warning. The lantern leads unerringly, its crimson halo cutting swaths through the white illuminating glimpses. A fox's eyes gleaming amber from the underbrush, gone in a blink. Dew-beaded spider silk strung between trunks like fairy traps, quivering as if alive with unseen watchers. Your breath fogs the air, each exhale a visible plea, and the sarcasm slips in, wry as a half-smile in the mirror. Yeah, because nothing screams romantic stroll like chasing your dead fiancé's glow through pea soup fog, armed with nothing but a fruit-stained vow and zero cell service to call for backup. The eerie cadence builds, the fog muffling sounds into ASMR intimacy, the drip of condensation from overhead fronds, your own heartbeat thudding steady as a temple drum, until the lantern halts, hovering at the edge of a clearing you don't recall, ringed by willows that lean inward like conspirators. There, in the heart, a spectral shimmer, coalescing slow from the mist, a figure in bridal whites tinged crimson at the hems, the silk translucent as rice paper held to flame. May, or what's left of her, bound by the vow's unyielding thread, her form flickering like a lantern wick in draft. Eyes those same almond wells, now rimmed with the grave's subtle frost. She turns, hair unbound and flowing like ink spilled in water, the jade phoenix pin glinting faint in her tresses, and extends a hand. Pale, diaphanous, passing through the air with a chill that raises the fine hairs on your neck. Lan, she sighs, voice echoing hollow, as if called from the bottom of a well lined with silk. The promise pulls me back, but the divide hungers. You step closer, the lantern thrusting forward like a talisman, its glow merging with hers in a bloom of red that warms the fog to a hazy veil, revealing the clearing's secrets. Wild lotuses unfurling petals veined with light, their scent heavy and narcotic, like jasmine drowned in moonlight. Sacred revelations unfold then, her touch, ghostly but insistent, guiding your palm to her chest, where no heart beats but a pulse thrums, faint as a moth's wing against glass. The vows echo, woven from your shared breath under the betrothal willow. She speaks in fragments, words weaving through the mist like threads on a loom. The fire's caprice was no accident, but a shade's jealousy, some forgotten auntie's grudge. Unsettled by your union's joy, fanned the flame to steal her from the altar. You listen, transfixed, the fog curling around your ankles like curious serpents, the air alive with the low hum of unseen insects that sound too much like distant chants. Her form solidifies in the lantern's grace, enough to trace the peony embroidery on her sleeve, the one you stitched in stolen hours, needles pricking fingers that bled tiny vows into the cloth. Fulfill it, she urges, voice gaining strength, a sleepy lilt that tugs at your core. The ghost marriage, bind me to you, beyond the grave's greed. Joke's on the ancestors, isn't it? Plottin' petty arsons over wedding invites while love plays hard to haunt, turning matrimonial blues into full-on spectral soirees. But the moment deepens, eerie and intimate, as she leads you deeper into the grove, the lantern bobbing in tandem with her glow, illuminating a hidden shrine. Moss-draped stones etched with faded runes, a natural altar where the veil thins to gossamer. You kneel together, the earth cool and yielding under your knees, like a bed made of forgotten dreams, and the rite begins unbidden. Her hands over yours, arranging the pouch's remnants. The crushed persimmons smeared across the stones like sacred ochre, their sticky sweetness drawing fireflies that circle like attendant stars. You chant the words from the elders' scrolls, voice rough but resolute, invoking the yin-yang flux to wed the living breath to the wandering shade. The fog swirling tighter, a bridal train of mist that whispers approvals from the beyond. The quirky fringe of the lore slinks in with the shadows. Old tale spinners claim that such brides leave lantern kisses, faint red marks on the groom's brow that bloom like bruises but heal into luck charms, granting bountiful silk yields or sons with her unyielding spirit. You feel it now, her lips brushing your forehead, cool as river mist but sparking warmth that spreads like spilled wine through your veins, the mark tingling faint under your skin. Historians still argue whether ghost marriages were Qing-era mercy for the untimely dead, or a Taoist sleight to balance the cosmos's ledgers, ensuring no soul drifted unpaired into the wheel's spin. But here, in the clearing's hush, it's raw truth. Her form steadies, the crimson hems brightening to match the lantern's fire, eyes locking yours with a clarity that pierces the grave's dim. Revelations cascade, flashes of her crossing. The fire's lick a mere threshold, her spirit snared not by death's finality, but the vow's pull, a love so strong it forged a bridge of light across the divide. As the moon crests, silvering the lotuses into chalices of glow, you seal it fully. The jade bracelet from the betrothal, slipped onto her wrist where it phases through at first, then holds, solid, gleaming, binding the ethereal to the oath's core. Her laughter bubbles then, faint but true, echoing the pipa's twang from that festival night, and the fog parts like a curtain drawn for the encore, revealing the village paths beyond, lanterns twinkling distant like welcoming kin. "I'm yours, Lan," she murmurs, form merging with the light, the red glow expanding to envelop you both in a cocoon of crimson warmth that chases the chill, scented now with osmanthus revival, as if the blooms themselves approve. You rise, the shrine stones warm underfoot, the pouch empty but your heart fuller, the unyielding love transcending in waves that ripple the mist into harmless veils. The path home unwinds gentle, the lantern, now dual lit, hers woven into its frame, swinging lighter, casting dual shadows that twine like lovers' fingers on the gravel. Dawn's chorus stirs, birds trilling tentative, the river's lap a contented sigh, and the village stirs without suspicion, unaware of the night's ghostly nuptials. You pause at her gate, the morning glories perking as if refreshed, and feel her presence linger, a whisper in the breeze, a faint red tint to the sunrise that paints the thatch roofs. The vow fulfilled, the grave's divide bridged by light that outshines loss. You step inside, the workshop's looms waiting like patient suitors, threads ready to weave anew. Sleep tugs now, a sacred lull in the ASMR aftermath, her glow a bedside vigil that soothes rather than startles. You followed the ethereal call through fog's embrace, confronted the spectral truths, and in that unyielding love's glow, the world rights itself. Promises eternal, crimson and true. A bride's light forever kindled against the dark. You are Wei, the quiet one with ink-stained fingers from copying sutras in the village shrine. Your days a rhythm of brush strokes and bowed heads under the thatched eaves that sag like weary elders. The air in the scriptorium clings heavy with the must of rice paper and the faint, acrid bite of lamp-black ink, each dip of your quill a meditation on balance. The yin curve of a character mirroring the yang's bold slash, harmony etched in black on white. But lately, that balance frays at the edges, tugged by a craving that blooms unbidden in your chest, warm and insistent as the sun baking the river mud. It's her. Lian, the boatman's daughter, with laughter like wind chimes in a gale, her silhouette cutting through the morning mist as she poles the family raft laden with cormorants, those sleek birds with leashes of reed around their necks, diving for fish under her command. You watch from the bank, hidden among the willows whose branches trail the water like hesitant fingers. The river's lap against the pilings, a soft underscore to your stolen glances. Her hair, bound in a careless knot, catches the light in threads of chestnut, and when she calls to the birds, sharp, melodic commands, the sound hooks something deep, pulling your focus from the sacred texts to this earthly pull. Trudge the path to the market then, your satchel heavy with scrolls for the herbalist's trade, the gravel crunching under your straw sandals like whispered judgments. The village sprawls along the bend, a huddle of tiled roofs bowed to the river's whim, air thick with the sizzle of sesame oil in woks and the briny tang of drying fish strung on bamboo poles. Leon's raft docks mid-morning, cormorants squawking their haul onto the wharf, silver scales glinting like scattered coins from the Jade Emperor's own hoard. You linger at the tea stall, nursing a bowl of jasmine brew that steams lazy curls into the humidity, its floral bite masking the deeper ferment in your gut. She passes close, basket balanced on hip, the sway of her skirts brushing the air with a scent of river damp and wild ginger. Earthy, alive, a counterpoint to the shrine's sterile incense. Your eyes meet, accidental as a dropped brush, and she smiles, quick, sun-bright, before vanishing into the crowd. That spark ignites, doesn't it? A forbidden desire, not of flesh alone, but of disruption. To claim her time, her laugh, unraveling the threads of duty that bind you to the scrolls. her to the waves. By dusk, the craving coils tighter. A serpent in your belly as you return to the shrine, the lantern-lit path flanked by fireflies that wink like conspirators. The head monk drones the evening sutra, his voice a gravelly river over the wooden beads clicking in your hand. But your mind drifts to Lian, imagining her hands, calloused from the pole, tracing your characters instead of commanding birds. The air cools, carrying the night's first frog chorus from the paddies, a throaty hymn that mocks your inner tumult. You slip away after Compline, the moon a sliver of jade overhead, and find yourself at the river's edge again, skipping stones that plunk into the black water like half-hearted offerings. The surface ripples, distorting the stars into fractured mandalas, and that's when the first discord hums. A breeze unnaturally sharp, whipping the reeds into a frenzy that sounds too much like distant thunder, though the sky hangs clear as polished pearl. You dismiss it, chalking the chill to the water's breath, but the craving pushes you further. Tomorrow, you vow silently, you'll speak to her, trade a scroll for a moment. Let passion's spark leap the gap between monkly restraint and mortal want. The market dawns bustling, a kaleidoscope of haggling voices and the sharp crack of bamboo as vendors unfurl their mats. You weave through, satchel lighter now with a pilfered poem, your own, inked in haste, verses of longing veiled as river odes. Leon's at the fish stall, gutting silver bellies with the knife that flashes quick as her grin, entrails plopping wet into a bucket that steams faintly in the heat. You approach, heart slamming like a temple drum gone rogue, and offer the scroll with feigned casualness, for the bird's master, words to calm their dives. She takes it, fingers brushing yours, electric, lingering a beat too long, and her eyes sparkle with mischief. A monk with poetry. The heavens must be dozing. You laugh, the sound foreign in your throat, and the talk flows. Her tales of cormorant tricks, your whispers of sutra secrets, the air between you thickening with that heady mix of ginger and ink. By noon, you've bartered a stolen hour on her raft, poling lazy downstream where the willows thicken into private curtains. The waters slap against the hull a rhythmic lull that invites confessions. Her hand finds yours amid the reeds, warm and sure, and the kiss ignites. Soft at first, then fervent, tasting of salt spray and unspoken vows. The world narrowing to the creak of oars and the forbidden heat blooming unchecked. Joke's on the realms, isn't it? You sneak a smooch on a bird boat like it's just another market deal, while up there, the celestial accountants are probably sharpening their abacuses for the imbalance fee. But the sarcasm fades as the sun arcs high, gilding the river in molten paths, and you linger too long. Passion's spark fanned to a steady flame that warms your skin even as a shadow crosses the water, unnatural, like a cloud devouring the light. The cormorants unsettle, necks craning skyward with low croaks that echo the thunder's distant growl, now closer, rumbling through the earth like the gods clearing their throats. You part reluctant, her laughter trailing as you pull back, but the discord lingers. Fishers on the bank muttering of ill winds. A sudden squall whipping the surface to froth without a cloud in sight. Back at the shrine, the head monk eyes you sharp over his beads, the air humming with unvoiced reprimand, incense curling thicker, as if to smother the scent of ginger on your collar. That night, the craving peaks in dreams. Leon's form woven into the sutras, characters twisting into lovers' knots that bind heaven and earth too tight. The Jade Emperor's throne cracking under the strain. You wake sweat damp, the lantern's flame guttering low, casting shadows that dance like warning silhouettes on the paper walls. The village feels off-kilter, roosters crowing at odd hours, the river running swifter with a murmur that sounds like judgment. Mainstream lore anchors this unease to the Han Dynasty's 2nd century celestial hierarchies. When the Jade Emperor's cult formalized in imperial edicts, casting him as the ultimate arbiter of cosmic balance, his warnings etched into festival rites to curb mortal hubris. Historians still argue whether these thunder omens were shamanic echoes from pre-Taoist tribes or a Confucian gloss on natural disasters. But in your fevered haze, it's personal. The breeze through the eaves carries a chill that smells of ozone and orchids. Fringe whispers say the Emperor's messengers leave such scents, floral bribes from paradise masking the storm's approach. The quirky tidbit slithers in with the fog rolling off the water at dawn. Old river folk swear that unchecked desires summon jade foxes, spectral kitsune kin who borrow lovers' forms to tempt the faithful. Their tales leaving emerald glints in the mud that promise fortune but deliver floods. You shake it off, trudging to the wharf with renewed resolve, the satchel now stuffed with more poems, the craving ablaze that defies the gathering clouds. Leon waits, raft bobbing eager, and you board without a word. The pole thrusting deep into the murk as you glide into the reeds once more. Her arms encircle you, the kiss deeper, hungrier, the raft rocking gentle in the current's cradle. But the sky darkens abrupt, thunder cracking overhead like a whip from the throne room, rain sheeting down in silver lashes that sting like reprimand. The cormorants panic, wings battering the air, and Leon clings tight, her whisper lost in the roar. The heavens weep for us. You hold her, passion unquenched, but the discord swells, waves slapping higher, the river churning as if the Dragon King stirs below in jealous ire. The threads unravel further, harmony's delicate weave fraying under your spark, pulling the realms toward a trembled brink where mortal desire dares the divine gaze. As the squall breaks, leaving you sodden and breathless on the bank, the air hums with aftermath. Birds silent, water lapping accusatory, the village lanterns flickering uneasy against the twilight's early creep. You've kindled it way, the forbidden flame that tips the scales, inviting the Emperor's warning to thunder closer. Omens brewing in the bruised sky like ink in a storm-tossed bowl. The shrine calls you back, scrolls waiting like silent judges, but the craving lingers, a sacred ember in the eerie hush, lulling you toward the rituals yet to mend what passion has rent asunder. The shrine's eaves drip with the squall's parting gift, fat raindrops plunking into puddles that mirror the bruised clouds like fractured omens, each splash a soft reprimand, echoing the thunder's retreat. You stumble through the gate, sodden robes clinging cold to your skin, the ink from your satchel bleeding into abstract sutras on the stone flags, symbols of harmony now smeared like your resolve. Leon's taste lingers on your lips, salty as the river's spray, a forbidden echo that wars with the head monk's gaze, sharp as a diviner's blade from the meditation hall's shadowed porch. He doesn't speak, not yet. Instead, He gestures to the inner sanctum, where the air hangs thicker, laced with the steady burn of agar-wood incense that coils slow and deliberate. Its resinous veil parting only for the thunder's low rumble still grumbling in the distance, like the emperor's throat clearing for a decree. You kneel on the worn tatami, knees sinking into the weave that's absorbed 1,000 prostrations, the chill seeping upward as if the earth itself withholds its warmth. The craving smolders, a coal in your core, but the omens press heavier now, the cormorant's frantic croaks replaying in your mind, the unnatural squall that doused your passion like a censor's snuff. Night falls abrupt, the lanterns outside sputtering to life in fits, their glow trembling against the wind that rattles the paper screens like impatient spirits at the gate. You unroll a fresh scroll by lamplight, the brush hovering hesitant over the rice paper's pristine expanse. But your hand shakes, inking a blot that spreads like guilt's ink blot test. The head monk enters then, his footsteps a measured cadence on the creaking boards, beads clicking soft in his fist like a rosary of river stones. "The heavens stir, way," he murmurs, voice gravelly as the Yangtze's bed, settling cross-legged before you with a rustle of saffron that fills the room with faint camphor. He doesn't accuse. Instead, he recounts the signs. The thunder's path veering unnatural toward the shrine, lightning etching the willow's silhouette. A tree sacred to the Jade Emperor, its branches said to whisper mandates to the faithful. You nod, throat tight, the air humming now with that ozone bite from the storm, mingled with the incense's sacred hush and confess in fragments. The raft's sway, her hand's warmth, the kiss that tipped the scales. He listens, eyes half-lidded in that ASMR trance, then exhales slow. Desire is the wind that bends the reed, but the emperor demands balance. Heed the warning, or the rift widens. Dawn breaks sullen, the sky a slate-gray canopy that presses low, and the village whispers of woes. Fishers hauling empty nets from waters turned barren overnight. The river's flow sluggish as curdled milk, lotus pads wilting under an unseen frost despite the summer's cling. You trudge to the wharf with the monk's charge burning in your ears. Gather offerings, perform the rites to mend the tear your spark has rent. The air clings damp, carrying the faint rot of stranded carp beached on the mudflats, their scales dull as forgotten jade, and Leon's raft bobs empty at the dock, her absence a hollow in the morning's murmur. Guilt coils tighter, sarcasm slipping in like a wry aside. Yeah, because nothing says celestial slap on the wrist, like turning your crush's family business into a ghost town. Talk about killing the vibe, literally. You gather what you can. Bundles of rice paper talismans inked with pleas for harmony, their edges curling in the humidity. Baskets of river pebbles smoothed by eons, symbols of Earth's unyielding patience. And sprigs of wild orchid, their petals veined purple like thunder veins, plucked from the banks, where the squall uprooted them like uprooted vows. The ritual ground lies upstream, a crescent of sand cradled by the bend, where a weathered stele stands etched with the emperor's edicts. Characters worn but imperious, glowing faint in the overcast light. You arrange the offerings in a mandala of intent, pebbles circling the stele's base like orbiting stars, talismans fanned outward in radial pleas, orchids tucked into crevices where they nod gentle, releasing a scent that's equal parts sweet decay and divine nectar. The head monk joins at noon, his chant rising low and resonant, a baritone thread weaving through the reed's sigh, invoking the mandate of heaven, the celestial charter that binds realms in flux, demanding mortals curb their winds lest they lash the throne. You join, voice cracking at first, then steadying, the words rolling off your tongue like river stones polished smooth. O Jade sovereign, balancer of the 10,000 things, accept this humble mend. The air thickens, sacred and sleepy, the sand warm under your palms as you prostrate, forehead pressing into grains that yield like forgiving earth. Thunder echoes then, not wrathful but resonant, rolling from the clouds like a gong struck in the palace halls, vibrating through your bones in waves that hush the birds mid-call. The omens multiply. A jade fox, sleek, ethereal, with fur shimmering emerald in the half-light, slips from the tree line, circling the mandala once before vanishing into mist, leaving a single whisker glinting on the stele like a signed decree. Lian appears at the edge, basket forgotten, her face pale as moon-washed silk, drawn by the chance pull or the rift's magnetic ache. Way, she breathes, stepping onto the sand with bare feet that sink tentative. The river. It calls your name in the waves. You rise, the space between you humming with unspoken fracture. And together you add her touch, a cormorant's feather, iridescent black with a quill tip frayed from dives, placed at the circle's heart as offering for passion's wild flight. The thunder softens to a murmur, the sky cracking open in slivers of azure, and the rift mends in shimmers, water clarifying to mirror blue, lotuses perking with renewed vigor, the air lightening as if the emperor exhales approval through veiled grace. Joke's on the thunder god, isn't it? All that dramatic rumbling, and here you are, diffusing the divine tantrum with a rock garden and some bird fluff. Cosmic therapy session, courtesy of one wayward monk's makeout mishap. But the mercy unfolds gentle, the fox's whisker dissolving into the stele like absorbed ink. A fringe tidbit from the river lore. Such omens are said to be the emperor's whisker wards, talismans that grant the penitent a season's bounty, but only if burned at solstice to release the luck, lest it curdle into curses. Historians still argue whether the Jade Emperor's cult crystallized in the Tang dynasty's 8th century celestial bureaucracies, or echoed earlier Zhou shamans who read thunder as royal writ. But in this crescent hush, the debate fades to irrelevance. The realms realign, harmony's threads reweaving under your palm's press. Lian's hand finds yours amid the fading chant, tentative now, the kiss a memory tempered by awe, her warmth a bridge rather than a blaze. As the sun dips, gilding the river in hesitant gold, you scatter the remnants, talismans torn and cast to the current, where they bob like paper boats ferrying pleas downstream. Pebbles return to the bank, sinking silent into the mud's embrace. Orchids wilting graceful into the shallows, their petals unfurling one last bloom before surrender. The village stirs renewed, fishers hauling nets heavy with silver, laughter rippling from the wharves like the water's merry lap, and you walk Lian back, the path drier now, gravel crunching companionable underfoot. The shrine welcomes you at twilight, lanterns steady, the head monk nodding from the porch with eyes that crinkle like scroll edges. The echo fades, he says, handing you a fresh brush, but the mandate lingers, balance way in desire's wake. You nod, the craving banked to embers, sacred in its scar. The night's ASMR unfolding in frog songs and firefly blinks that weave the realms seamless once more. The rift mends, thunders echo a lullaby now, celestial grace veiled in the humble hush of offerings given and received. And now, as the river's murmur softens to a gentle cradle, wrapping around you like the silken folds of a dream half remembered, let the weight of the day dissolve into the gathering dusk, where shadows stretch long and forgiving, blurring the edges of what was stirred and what now settles. Feel the sand's warmth linger in your palms, a quiet assurance that even the mightiest tempests yield to the reed's bend, the heart's humble turn toward equilibrium, leaving no fracture too deep for time's patient stitch. The Jade Emperor's gaze lifts, benevolent as moonlight on still waters, whispering that desires, tamed and offered, become bridges rather than breaches, threads of light in the vast tapestry of realms entwined. Breathe deep this easing twilight, where thunder's rumble fades to the soft patter of evening rain on lotus leaves, each drop a pearl of mercy, rinsing the soul clean for tomorrow's unhurried dawn. Let your eyelids grow heavy, the world's hum a soothing veil drawing you under, safe in the knowledge that balance restores itself, gentle as a lover's sigh, eternal as the river's flow. Rest now, dear wanderer, in this sacred interlude. Good night.